Hello, I'm Beck. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be drawing a D&D character based on the roll of the dice.
Let's bring out the Tower of Destiny!
So we have an Owlin Vampire, and you're looking at the inspiration pictures that I used to decide what I wanted to draw with this one. She's got the highest stat in charisma, which is unlike other vampires I've had recently that were more scary. This one's going to be more sultry. This is a bit more of a sexy vampire, who also happens to look a little bit like an owl person, because that is what an owlin is. Someone who has essentially a humanoid body with an owl face and also wings on their back. Very similar to the Aarakocra race of D&D, which are bird people, but owlin have their own special traits. One of which is called Silent Feathers, which means you have proficiency in the stealth skill. This comes from your being part owl. You are graced with feathers that make no sound when you move or fly, making it easy to sneak up on people. You also have an extended range of dark vision, which goes to 120 feet rather than, I think it's 60? I think for some creatures it's even just 30, but like 120 feet of dark vision is pretty good. And of course, like the Aarakocra, you do have flight, which means that your flying speed is the same as your walking speed, unless you're wearing medium or heavy armor, which would obviously weigh you down. I love that the dice has coupled owlin with vampire because they're both nocturnal creatures, so it does go hand in hand really well. And while I did struggle, I had a little bit of internal debate about how does one make a beak look like a vampire? Like, do you add fangs or do you... I just left it as a beak because it's already capable of piercing flesh, so yeah. And also this is a sultry vampire. She's got a +3 to charisma. She's got a +2 to dex, so she's very sneaky and she's very charming. Or she can be very scary when she wants to be, but she's not focusing, like, she has -1 to con. She's only got a +1 to strength, so like, she's not barbarian. She's not a blood hunter. She's not using her physical body to get what she wants. She relies very heavily on charming people, possibly hypnotizing them. I think she might have some sort of ethereal song that she uses, and that would have a magical power as well. And with that in mind, I would base her abilities on the Bard class, and I would take the spells that are typically Bard spells, and I might just rename them to be like something more creepy. But I would also consider having things like, instead of Bardic Inspiration, I would have sort of like a Vampiric Domination, or give it a better name, but something where instead of granting your fellow players with inspiration, you might do something similar where you're actually making them distracted and uncomfortable, so they're rolling with disadvantage. Or maybe not your fellow players, maybe it's almost an attack, but not really, where your presence is just off-putting. And so where you would normally grant Bardic Inspiration, you might like wink at someone and they have to roll a like wisdom save, and if they fail it, then they have disadvantage, or they have to roll a d4 and minus it from whatever their next roll is. Something like that. Moving away from the mechanical nitty-grittiness, which we don't really need because we're not actually playing as this character, I wanted to talk a little bit about what she's like and how that sort of influences the drawing. So I use this ability score, as always. I refer back to the charisma again, because that's sort of, it's her highest stat, so it's probably one of her defining traits. And she's not really, I don't think she's interested in being like a master vampire, but I do think she's been around enough that she knows the ropes. She knows what she's doing. She knows how to stay out of sunlight and avoid anything that's dangerous to her, while also being able to take advantage of the special abilities that she's gotten by being a vampire. So she's very comfortable in her class, and she knows how to work it. She knows how to get around, basically. And I wanted to portray that, where she's a little bit cool, a little bit old school, but then also has modern touches. I think she tries to keep up with fashion and the times and things that are going on in front of her, while also having just a strong, almost nostalgic feeling towards everything that's happened in the past. I think she was turned so long ago that she doesn't remember not being a vampire. I don't think she remembers her living life. So she wouldn't remember her mortal family or what things were like for her back then. I think her memories are all very strongly connected to once she'd gotten the hang of being a vampire and other vampires she's met, and just other creatures like that along the way that she's formed really strong bonds with. And I think it's kind of that case of having various strong bonds with creatures who are also immortal. So she might go 100 years without seeing someone, but meets up with them for a coffee like it was yesterday, because to them it hasn't been that long. I think if she's friends with mortals, they would be the ones who live the longest, so elves and things like that. Or even the Warforged, because they're robots. So elves eventually die, but Warforged can go on and on and on and on. She might even have some artificer friends that she goes to, or she might be friends with a family where she doesn't really get to know the individuals that well, but there's just this standing relationship where everyone in the family knows that she might pop in from century to century to ask for a favor or give them gold in exchange for a favor later or something like that. So there's such a weird ability to play a game. You could play, I'm rambling now, but if you were playing a game that had all immortal creatures, you could sort of century hop and have part of the campaign start where everyone's in villages and huts and it's all very primitive, and then jump forward to say, okay, well now it's 200 years in the future and things have gotten a little bit more steampunk, and this is how this world has evolved. And you could end up doing space adventures where they're flying through the universe and exploring things like that, which also it brings into question certain as a vampire in space, how does the sunlight affect you? The sun is just a star, so would you have to avoid being too close to stars? Or is it just a certain kind of star that emits radiation? I guess that's up to you and your DM, but it's a fun thing to think about. Now, what should we call this character? I'm thinking Esmeralda. I like that. I like Esmeralda for her. It is also interesting to think about using a vampire in space travel just for the, when I say immortal, I mean ageless, because obviously all of these quote-unquote immortal creatures can die. It's just they won't die from old age. So if you are going on a space journey where it's going to take several generations of a normal, a human lifespan, if it's going to take 1,000 years to get from one planet to the other, you might be required to have an ageless creature on board in order to oversee the entire journey. And that could be an interesting way to play this character as well. I've gotten carried away with taking this vampire into the stars rather than playing her in a medieval setting or or even just a modern on-Earth setting where she's in a city and I actually like that though. If she's just a Owlin vampire wandering through the big skyscrapers of a modern city. It's fun to think about, how she hasn't explored around the world. She's stayed in one place and the world sort of changed around her. I think maybe that might be why she's joining an adventuring party, that call to adventure has finally hit her, where she's like, I've been in one place long enough, it's time to see what's happening elsewhere. And so she's either employed the companionship of a bunch of mortal beings because they keep her young, or she's seeking out other ageless immortal creatures that she wants to go on adventures with, knowing that they can take their time because, time is kind of very relative to them. So it depends what your other players choose to be. If you have a lot of players in your party who are the kind of thing that lives for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, it could be funny to have like a warforged, a vampire, a young elf who is expecting to live for a few centuries, and then just like a human. They don't expect the human to live very long, but then again, a vampire can create another vampire, so that could be an interesting point of friction in the party, especially if the human doesn't particularly want to be a vampire. It's fun to think about. It's fun to think about how you would play with this character. I decided to do a little bit of unusual lighting effect on this one. I thought it was a good opportunity because she is kind of like a cool nighttime-y character, that I wanted it to be a little bit of a city neon lights or almost steampunk vibe happening. Definitely the different colored bright lights versus just one that's light and one that's shadow. I did one source of light that's pink and one source of light that's blue. And yeah, I think it came out really cool looking, especially because she's a very monotoned colored character otherwise. So she's very black and white or shades of gray, or you get it, you're looking at the picture, you know what I'm talking about. I think you can sort of picture her at some sort of nightclub, and even though it's nighttime, she's got her umbrella blocking the sun that's reflecting off the moon. It doesn't hurt her, but she doesn't love the way it feels on her skin. I think she is a character who likes the luxuries in life as well. She's lived long enough to not be in the mood to suffer unnecessarily. So she uses the expensive creams, and she has a spa and a massage whenever she gets the opportunity. She's not a fan of, again, -1 constitution. She's not a fan of roughing it. And that could be very fun to roleplay in the context of an adventuring party, because sooner or later she will need to rough it. She will need to sleep in a forest, and that's not something I think she's done in 1,000 years, if ever. So that could be a fun thing to introduce to the group as well. A little bit of a diva. What do we think of Esmeralda the Owlin Vampire? I think she came out really well. I'm quite proud of this one. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, and have you ever played as an owl? Well, have you ever played a vampire? Do you have your own homebrew class? And if so, is it something you would want to share with other players? Is it posted online anywhere? Let me know. Have you ever played the Owlin? I know it's part of the Strixhaven, so it's like behind a firewall thing, but they seem like a really fun race to play, so yeah. Let me know what you think, and in the meantime, this chick's cool. I'm gonna say it, she's cool. I know I created her, but yeah. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!